Hello, friends and allies, ladies and gents. How is everybody today? It's your stream for the week. This week, Thursday came by so fast. Oh my goodness. So I can see there's already some people in the chat. It's really heartening to see that there's already people coming out and watching the show. So, for those that are new to the stream, welcome. I appreciate you guys coming out. I do this stream every week in the hour countdown before I release a new video. I see we've got a Tommy Tom. You must be on the West Coast. Wishing me a good morning. And we also have... Yeah, the storm did... There was no storm. There was maybe a bit of snow. That's about it. Hello, Fedor. Hello, everybody. So, I guess I should probably start by telling you guys a story about how crazy this week was. So I'm at like this problematic part of my relationship with the YouTube space, which is that it's usually really great. I still love shooting at the YouTube space. I think everything sounds great, looks great, really is better for the channel overall. The problem that comes up is that the YouTube space books up very fast. Until you have 100,000 subscribers, from 10,000 to 100,000 subscribers, you can only book one session every 30 days. And you can only see about 30 days into the future. So, as a person who is not at 100,000 subscribers, I'm almost a third of the way there, though. You basically have your ability to schedule cut in half. And so you're usually basically fighting for the scraps of whatever days are available. Feel very sorry for you, Ace. I'm sorry about that. One day at a time, buddy. Don't let it wreck you. You've still got a whole lot of stuff to do. And you know what, Ace? You're in high school. Once you get to like university, that's when you meet the people who really get you. I'm just I know that's small comfort at a time like this, and all I can say is that's if things are going to be rough for a while, there's nothing I can say to make you feel better. But if there is anything I can say to solace, is you've got a long way to go, and you've got a lot of people to meet. So, you know, I think that people don't really figure out who they are until they're in their early to mid 20s anyway, even then. So where was I? Yeah, so the YouTube space is getting super hard to book, like really hard to book, to the point where I thought about maybe 2 weeks ago that I wasn't going to be able to book a slot at the YouTube space. Hello, Shachar. I realized I probably wouldn't be able to book the space until April, which meant that I would have several weeks of videos where I would have no ability to film them before they needed to go live. So I thought I was going to have to, make some motion graphic stuff, and I started working on some motion graphic stuff until a spot opened up very quickly, and I grabbed it. And it's sadly for this Saturday. This Saturday, I had to go, and I only had 2 of my 5 scripts written, because I usually go and film 5 videos at a time. So this week, I had to very quickly put together 3 more scripts. And on top of that, I decided to change up my change up my animation style with all the new stuff that I was playing around with. So starting next week, I have some improvements to the visual style of the videos that you guys will see. But yeah, I actually just finished that right as I started streaming. But I had to very quickly write a ton of scripts this week. And that's been my week pretty much. And Shakar. All right. So that's the things that are going on, and I'm pretty. I think I'm going to be okay with these scripts, but you never know. Ace is very kind. I know he's having a rough day, but what's today's video? The sushi was good. I had sushi for lunch. I'm trying to eat a lot of like probiotic stuff, so I bought sushi. It was good. It was, as good as like really quick sushi that I didn't make myself can be, which I imagine sushi I made myself would be an absolute disaster, but it's as good as sushi that comes in a plastic container that you buy at the grocery store can be. As for my video today, it's I'm gonna say it's a little bit of a surprise because it's a special video. So hang on. I was just lunching before we come. So for those who are new to the stream, this hour before I make a new video, I take questions from the audience and go on rants and talk about things until the hour runs out, and then you guys get to watch my video. So, So what do you guys what do you guys want to talk about this week? Hello, Jacob Spangler. Eating at 7. No, B-Tabot, I live in Toronto. I ate sushi at noon, which is a pretty normal time to eat sushi, I think. Anyways, things that are coming up. I can now pretty safely say that my subscriber appreciation day for this month is going to be with Peter Coffin, which will be fun. Have I ever tried natto? I don't think I've never tried natto. I've seen people try it. I know it's like fermented soybeans, which I'm sure is pretty. I've been told things about natto. So first of all, natto, for you guys, it's a Japanese, very common Japanese food, apparently really healthy, probiotic, and what it is it's fermented soybeans. And for some reason, I'm not sure why this works this way in Japan, but Japanese cuisine has a lot of people who really like things that are slimy. And so they actually put condiments on their natto to make it more slimy. Usually they eat it with they mix it in with a raw egg and usually put some mustard on it and some other stuff. And then they eat it. And apparently it smells like bad meat. Like it smells awful, but it's apparently okay on rice with the egg and everything like that. But it's apparently super healthy, really good, probiotic-y, everything. And yet, no, I haven't tried it because though natto is something that's super hard to get outside of Japan, but I do live near a Korean grocery store, so we can see if they have Japanese stuff. So that's my natto stuff. All right, I see we've got some questions. Are you going to try playing Stellaris again anytime soon? Also, have you tried the alpha mod? Well, let's see. I would say you do a world tour. All right. Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with this question. So have you ever tried playing? Are you going to play Stellaris anytime soon? Also, have you tried the alpha mod? I think I will try Stellaris again in the future. I think that I only think I would do a stream like that during prime time if there was a unique circumstance. Like the reason I did that stream was because my wife was out of town that night. Usually, I like to keep my evenings open to do stuff like going out and gaming with my friends, or spending time with my wife watching TV and having some time with her. So I try to keep my evenings free for those activities. But if my wife's ever away, or like my gaming night gets canceled, or something comes up, I might try doing something like Stellaris. Or if like So That Happened gets canceled, that might be a thing I try. But those are the things that I would probably try to do. And also, I think when I played Stellaris at one time, the game was in really rough shape because, one, there was still a lot of bugs that Paradox hadn't worked out. They're just now getting a handle on all of them. They have like 2 patches already that they've tried to do since we watched at that time. Happy International Women's Day, of course, Ace. That will come up later today. And also, when it comes to Stellaris, the game is the game was not fixed yet. It was very broken and needed to be patched, so it was hard to play that. Also, the game had completely been rebooted, and I had no idea what I was doing. And it took me several days of playing just to figure out what it was that was going on. So I have a better grasp now, and so if I played again, I think I would have a better chance at doing stuff. That being said, I don't think that I would make that a regular thing unless I found some way to get way better at having a presence with something like a game. So, and I've never tried the alpha mod. I don't know what the alpha mod is. Are you scared that a few people seem to worship you? Is it ironic? Do people actually view you as a god? I do not think people actually view me as a god. I think that that's just a few of you being a goof. Probably because I am so anti-authority and so anti-hierarchy. The fact that you guys know that and still keep insisting that I'm some sort of god, I think is hopefully, I hope, is just an ironic, funny goof. But I'm sure you guys know that I am a perfectly normal human who is very bad at a lot of things. Probably more things than I'm good at. Shakar, can you do a world tour? I am not famous enough to do a world tour. I don't even know if I tried to do a Toronto meetup that I would be able to get anybody to come out. But, you know, something could if I had like a book or something that had a huge budget behind it, then maybe. But you know, I don't have. I can barely make ends meet at the moment. I can't conceivably pay the money that it would take to travel around the world unless something very, very differently changed. That's my situation. I want to write a book. I just have like this a whole bunch of other things going on at the moment. I'd have to go full time. All right. Next question. Could the Aztecs have defeated the Spanish? I think in the say in like an alternate scenario in which the whole smallpox or disease vector thing the immunity thing didn't happen. If that was like not a case, then I would totally be for. Then I would totally. So I think that the Aztecs could totally have pushed off the Spanish for a long time, but the difference in technology levels, the difference in their colonial mindsets and things like that, I think in the long term would not have resulted in the Aztecs being able to fully push back the Spanish forever. I could see more of a intense amount of warfare, especially as the Aztecs started to pick up Spanish technology and adapt it to themselves. But so I can see a more equitable, or at least even footing relationship, even though there'd probably be a lot of wars and violence. But so it might not be that total domination that happened because of the 90% destruction of Aztec society. But you know, that could come out. That could happen. Um, oh Lord, what sacrifice shall I offer you today? You guys. Would you try beet kvass? It's supposed to be probiotic. It seems to be easy to make. I don't even know what that is. I've never heard of it before. Sounds good though. I like beets. And I'm trying to eat more fermented food for some reason. I've been told that that's good. I don't know. I've been trying to eat like yogurt and kimchi. That seems to be my two favorites these days. So I don't know. In an anarchist society, how would you regulate things like this and medicine? It would. I think that a lot of the poor regulations on things come from a profit motive. And if somebody was motivated to actually do the service that they wanted to do, they would probably want to do it as best as they could. You'd have industries that would take care of things through mutual aid, mutual sharing of information and wealth, and hopefully keep things abreast. Then again, you know, just because I imagine a society that doesn't have rulers doesn't mean you don't have rules. You know, you'd still have regulators. You could still have these people who make sure everything is safe and working. They would just be people who are doing it as like their service to humanity, not as like a paycheck. And trust me, those people exist. I knew somebody in London who was seriously passionate about street safety and traffic law and design for intersections and things like that. So like those people exist. All right, do we have any more questions? Oops. You know what, Shakar, I would love to. I'll do an all kibbutz tour. The only problem is that I would need to go to the Middle East. I would need to like do all of my Middle Eastern traveling first, because then I would need to travel the Middle East because when you go to Israel, they won't. The other people won't. They won't stamp your passport anymore, and so I gotta. That's the problem with going to Israel. It's difficult. If you could have a superpower, what power would you have? I think I would go with probably the Luke Cage power. I feel like that's the one that I would feel the most comfortable going around helping people with, as if I was like super strong but also indestructible. What's your next video about? It's a surprise this week. When writing historical papers, how do you balance narrative and analysis? I may have just fucked up on a paper. You don't want... I do think that people in academia undervalue the power of writing a narrative throughout your paper, because you are trying to build towards an argument, and that is telling a story in one way. And yet, that would be difficult. Or that you do need to not sacrifice on information. So in my mind, you do research until you find out what the story is that's going on. And when you do that, you then should probably look at narrative conventions and see how your information fits such a narrative, and use narrative conventions to try and explain the kind of point you're trying to make with your argument. But don't sacrifice information for it. Think of it more as a way to help you focus on things. You could go back to an older OS, what would it be? I'm actually pretty happy with Windows 10. I don't really think too much, though, about OSs, to be honest. How do you feel about probiotic parasites, things like hookworms, which have a shared evolutionary past with humans? Oh, no, the guy with the hammer's back. I actually don't even know. Probiotic parasites, hookworm. I am not an expert on these things. Do not give yourself hookworm. I don't know. You have to ask if Cheryl's still in the chat. She might have a better answer to that than I do. What platforms do you use to make your videos? My video is made primarily in the Adobe Creative Suite. I film my videos. I film all of my videos with some fancy cameras over at the YouTube space, and then everything else I do is in the Adobe sphere because I'm learning about it, and I think that with history or with my videos, I think that I have to, with my own videos, if you keep in that sphere, it's good, but also it's pretty valuable. So like I've actually done one or two freelancing gigs because I know how to use like Premiere and stuff like that. So learning the Adobe Creative Suite is a useful thing to do. Let's see what we got next. How do you feel about the privatization of education? I think it's an abomination on humanity and completely ruining what education should be for. Education should be for enriching people's minds, preparing them for the greater world of the big folk. But privatizing it is not only reserving education and advances in education for rich people, but it also creates and re-entrenches a class divide. If there are rules, wouldn't you then need law enforcement? You can talk a little bit about policing social behavior. There's a lot of stuff that's been written that would take a community-based approach rather than like a police-based approach. You don't necessarily need beat cops in order to enforce rules that maintain social cohesion. You can just have stuff like you can just have things like restorative justice and base things around community decisions. Honestly, I don't think there is a solution, a one full solution to any of these problems. I think that there are problems we should explore, work on, because none of them have been tested really in a big way. They're things that we should probably think about, develop, and see where they go. I do think that we should try and find ways to enforce a cohesive society that do not require having armed bullies walking around harassing people. And I don't think that that's a difficult thing to do. Is there construction going on near you? I hear what sounds like a hammer. Yeah, it had stopped for a while, but it seems to have picked up just now. There's I think the person who lives on top of me is renovating. So, you know, I'm working on it. What should the West have done about the Rwandan genocide? Offered safety and harbor for the people who were trying to escape, try to create safety zones in Rwanda to get people out, and if the UN could have gotten involved using peacekeepers to make sure that genocides did not occur. Unfortunately, they decided not to do that. I'm going to history to do a history GCSE in about a year's time in the UK. We're studying the Cold War. What's your favorite period in history? Well, William Rome. I like the progressive period, or whatever you would call it. I think that my favorite time period, I mean, I study like the War on Terror period, like the 2000s, but I like the kind of 1900s. That's kind of a thing that I like to look at. I think that the 90s have a lot of cool stuff that's going on that people don't really think about very much. It's difficult. It's a difficult answer. I find things that I love in so many periods. I also love like the Age of Exploration. Obviously, I have a thing for pre-Columbian America. It's all over the place. Great. Doughboy DeVito, congratulations on getting accepted to Washington State. I hope that you have a really fun time. And you are, I don't know what program you're doing, but congratulations. I hope that works out well for you. University is, in my opinion, the most fun time of your life, or at least one of the more fun chapters of your life. So go to it, enjoy every moment of it and try to do your work, but also explore other things, explore who you are, explore who you are in relation to other people, and make friends, get involved. It's a really great time to be alive. How do you read books and sources so quickly? This is a thing that I have tried to do for a while. These are things that I do usually. Is there's two principles that you can do to read sources faster, which is one, you can read around sources. So you can actually learn a lot about a book. If you're not like interested, or if you don't need the minutia and detail and examples from a text, you can actually read around it quite a bit and get most of the information that you need. You know, reading the introductions and conclusions, kind of sifting through the chapters, looking at charts and graphs and things like that, but also reading, if it's an academic book, reading reviews of it in journals, that helps a lot. And kind of trying to look up what the conversation is about the book rather than the book itself. You can actually learn quite a bit about what you need to know from a book from those things. And then if you want to know about a particular example, or you're interested in getting every particular iteration and example, then you can just go from there. I should probably do something where I sit down and talk through how I read a book step by step, because I have like a whole process, but that's the gist of it. There's actually a really great book you can read on that called How to Talk About Books You Haven't Read, which helps a lot. Who should be Bernie Sanders' VP? Let's say for an olive branch to the political establishment, you can go with... who would be good? I do like the idea of Tulsi Gabbard, the congresswoman from Hawaii. She would be pretty good. I also think that Elizabeth Warren would make a pretty good vice president, especially because she doesn't really like campaigning all that much. So, but she has good politics. So having her as like a vice president who would be kind of like a bridge towards the Democratic Party, both her and Tulsi Gabbard would make pretty good vice presidents, I think. Has there ever been a time in history in which a country moving along the path to genocide had their genocide prevented as a result of intervention? I mean, possibly. You could say, you know, people say in World War II, but there's other cases like you could say that the deaths involved with the breakup of Yugoslavia were greatly reduced by the intervention of the United Nations, but that also is a dubious thing to say. Although because a lot of people still died in the breakup of Yugoslavia, but there were UN peacekeepers there who probably did prevent a few major attacks, but I don't think there's anybody who's prevented it entirely, which is sad. Yes. All right. Let's start. All right. What are other popular historical periods besides antiquity and World War II? World War I is starting to become pretty popular, especially outside of the United States. World War I period tends to get a lot of attention. The Victorian age tends to get a lot of attention, especially in Britain, because that's kind of like the apex of their imperial power. Napoleonic era, the like late 18th century, early 19th century, is considered pretty popular. Those probably are the ones that stick out in my head. What's Tulsi Gabbard? Well, Shakar, Tulsi Gabbard is a congresswoman from... Tulsi Gabbard is a congresswoman who represents Hawaii, or one of the some constituency in Hawaii, and she was part of the DNCCC. She was part of the DNCCC for a long time. She was part of like the rules committee for the primary process, and she dropped out of that. She resigned from that position to endorse Bernie Sanders, and she made a whole campaign, and she campaigned for him and all those things. And one of the things that I think the things that make her really good for checking the box of either being vice president for Bernie Sanders or running for president herself are that she has a strong progressive statement. She has a strong progressive background. One of the things that Bernie Sanders she ticks a lot of the things that Bernie Sanders gets criticized for with things that he lacks. She is representative. She's former military. She's involved with a lot of foreign policy committees. So like, Jesus Christ. Okay. So like she's a veteran, but which will help her get elected. But she's pretty like involved. Like she's got a lot of foreign policy chops, and people criticize Bernie Sanders for not having enough of a foreign policy background. So there's that. She would also be the first woman to ever be vice president, which would be a big deal. She's anti-interventionist. She's the first Hindu ever elected to Congress, and she would be the first Hindu and the first she'd be the first non-Christian to ever be vice president, and Bernie Sanders would be the first non-Christian to be elected president. So like that would all work out really well. She's pretty great. She's a pretty great choice. And if she doesn't become Bernie Sanders' vice president, I think that she could very easily have a very successful run of her own. She has that progressive credentials behind her, but she also has a lot of the things that she's like a lot of the connections with the party, and she seems like a very electable person. So Tulsi Gabbard, watch out for her. She's going to be doing stuff, I think. What's fantastic is, though, although I have different political views to you, you're a capitalist. I'm so sorry. You are very great at explaining your views. Do you think that there will ever be a socialist U.S. government? Maybe. Explicitly, like as in like a socialist party taking over the United States, probably not. For a openly socialist caucus having significant sway in the Democratic Party and possibly having somebody from that caucus being president, I could see that happening. I could see that happening soon. The kind of liberal order that dominated the 20th century is starting to fall apart. And so I think that socialism as a alternative to capitalism, as an alternative to the things that are causing so much pain in America, could be very appealing. It's just that they need to sell themselves. What's the best ramen you've ever had? I actually, it's a place called GB Handful Noodles in downtown Toronto. It's pretty good. Do you think World War I has significant impact on Canada getting its independence, or do you think Canadian independence was inevitable? Difficult to say. That would be, Canada was still on its road to independence, and honestly, I don't think World War I did a whole lot to help with that. Canada didn't try to come into its own until our centennial. So like the late 60s, early 70s is really when Canada did its thing. I don't think World War I played much of a role in that. Was World War I or II avoidable? World War I probably was not avoidable. It would have happened in some way or another. World War II could have been avoidable if the Treaty of Paris had worked out differently, if the League of Nations had lived up to its stated ideals, if the U.S. had joined the League of Nations. Yeah, World War II could have been prevented. What religion is Bernie? Bernie Sanders is Jewish, although there's people, especially Hillary Clinton's Oppo research group, kind of tried to make the case that he's not religious, so he might just be Jewish racially, but he's not. He might be an atheist, but honestly, he's probably Jewish. I mean, that's and I mean that would be great. If they make a World War I movie, which actors would play some of the major figures? I have no idea how to answer that question. honestly, I don't think there's anybody who is old enough or looks ridiculous enough to play some of the roles that you would need to have. I also can't imagine a lot of these famous actors with like the mustaches and beards you would need to have to run it. All right. It is not if USA becomes socialist. It is how to make the USA socialist. To make the USA socialist would require, I think, if you want to help the cause of socialism in America, and you're American, the thing that you should probably do at this point is start trying to win the war of ideas. Unfortunately, the United States is in a place where it is lacking a lot of political ideas. Things that have been established in the rest of the world decades ago don't seem to have penetration. And you really need to find a way to push ideas that have already been done in other countries in America. And that seems pretty hard. But if you can sell people on why things like a universal healthcare system or a strong welfare state or high minimum wage, why those things make sense and why they've caused other countries to shoot far ahead of the United States when it comes to rights and workers like and like standard of livings and things like that, then yeah, that'd be great. Unfortunately, America just likes to say that it's number one and doesn't like to look at comparative things. Like they don't really care about the fact that the United States is lagging behind the rest of the industrialized world when it comes to like education and standard of living and happiness and all that kind of thing. So that is a thing that I think that would be difficult. Oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. Okay. What is up with the Israeli video? Well, Shakar, there are going to be two of them. I think I've already mentioned that to you, but I will say it again, is that I have turned my Israel, for everybody else, I have a Patreon stretch goal video coming out pretty soon. Happy Women's Day, Audible Anarchist. We have a Women's Day coming out, or sorry, I have a Patreon stretch goal video coming out about Israel. Hey, Dad, my girlfriend dumped me. At least I have you. Oh, my goodness. I feel for you, Ace. That really sucks. Anyways. Israel video. So I'm making a video about the history of the Israeli conflict, Arab-Israeli conflict. And it's split into two scripts. One has been filmed. One was filmed the last time I was in the YouTube space. The next one I will be filming on Saturday. So that is a thing that is in, the scripts are finished for them. Then one is going to be releasing on March 29th. So look out for part 1 coming out on March 29th and part 2 coming out on April 5th. So that is the status of the Israel videos. There we go. Everybody tell Ace that everything is going to be okay. That's honestly, it's not going to seem like that to him right now because breakups suck. They suck a lot. But hopefully just let him know everything's going to be okay. Just give it enough time. And also, don't be ashamed for feeling bad. Sometimes you have to have rough emotions. And despite the way that society conditions men, emotions are not a bad thing. It is okay to be sad sometimes. It is okay to experience emotions that are not anger. And so just, allow yourself to feel bad. And let yourself do the things that you need to do to handle those emotions, and then think about the future and think about how much longer you have to live and how many great adventures lie ahead of you. And hopefully that'll get you moving again. But no rush. Just do what you need to do. Take care of yourself. That's about all I can really say. All right. What do you think about Afrin, Syria? I don't really know exactly what you're talking about. Is it possible for China to become socialist again? I don't know. It doesn't seem to be going in that direction, so don't. I wouldn't rely on that. If you had to choose a United State to live in, which one would you choose? I'd personally choose Colorado or New Mexico. All right, so here's the thing about America. This is one of the sad things about America, and that is the states that are the best to live in politically are very different from the states that are best to live in weatherishly. So when it comes to like where I would like to live weather-wise, I would like to live in California. I think California has really great weather. I love the sun. I love the ocean. I love deserts. I love all that kind of stuff. Or anywhere in the American Southwest. But, you know, I still think California would be the better option for me. When it comes to politics, I think that I would want to live either in Oregon or Vermont, and neither of those are two appetizing options. Oregon probably would be better for living in. I think that Cascadian, you know, always kind of cool and cloudy and rainy might get a little nauseating after a while, but you know, it is what it is. The Turkish invasion. I actually don't know what the details of the Turkish invasion of Syria are, but the Syrian conflict is something without end, and I think that the Turks getting involved in it spells at least some long-term problems for the Kurds, because the Turkish are very anti-Kurd, and I think that if there's one thing about the war, or about the Syrian civil war, is that we might end up with independence for Kurdistan, but Turkey getting involved might hurt that. What about the Midwest, Tristan? I live in a place that is weather-wise identical to the Midwest, and you know, it's okay, but the world could do better. I could live in nicer places than the Midwest. Alrighty. Do you know about the show Timeless? No, I don't. I know you really like time travel, so I imagine it's a time travel show. Both states are absolutely amazing. What do you have against snow? The thing I have against snow is that I have had way too much of it for one lifetime, and I would rather live in a place that had sand and sun and really good Mexican food rather than like snow and slush and darkness and not being able to go outside for half the year. Californians don't know how good they have it weather-wise. If it wasn't in America, I would live in California. The second that, if California becomes independent, I would totally move to California to join their socialist liberal paradise, even though, you know, it's full of liberal plutocrats, basically. What states do you hate most? I mean, I would probably say that for many reasons, none of which will surprise you, I have a pretty low opinion of Mississippi. Mississippi has seemed to be dedicated to turning itself into a developing world within the United States. It's falling apart and seems to not care. It is a state that ratified the 13th Amendment in 2008. It is a state that is routinely 50th in things like literacy, teen pregnancy, and number one in things like teen pregnancy and belief in angels. So Mississippi seems like all of the things that suck about the South magnified in one place. So yeah. Do you think that there will be a trial in the 21st century that will have the same media attention and cultural impact as the O.J. Simpson trial in the 20th century? I don't, unless maybe something really big happens. But there's too much. There's too much media going on at any given time right now, and the reason why O.J. Simpson took off the way it did is because cable news was still kind of a new thing, and I think that we've kind of become used to that by this point. So I don't know if we would ever be enamored by something like an O.J. Simpson trial again. And again, we haven't had a situation where, like, for example, we've never had a situation where if, say, Johnny Depp committed murder and he was on trial, maybe that would end up being like a situation. I don't know. We've never seen a celebrity like that end up in such a situation, or at least that we know of yet. Oh yeah, and if all the Russia Trump stuff went down, I think that would be pretty big. How old are your kids? I do not have any children, except for the cats. And if you're asking about the cats, I have two. One is 8 and one is like 4. Doesn't California have bad freshwater problems? Yes, they do. Do you think it was right that the Nazis at Nuremberg were executed? Yes, I do think that even though they were some of the most despicable people on earth, you don't unright their crimes by killing them. Again, you're not doing justice. You're trying to get revenge, and I think that only makes things worse. Case in point, Israel. Israel is the sign that violence doesn't really accomplish much. What's your favorite soda? I really like root beer. Don't you think capitalism can't work even with the right social safety net? I do think that is. Oh, why don't you think capitalism won't work even with a good social safety net? I guess like my hope, the thing I have about capitalism is like, I was saying this to somebody where it was like, say you had a like device that was designed for drilling holes in the ground. And the problem is that you don't want it to drill holes in the ground, but you still want it to run. And what seems to be happening in a lot of capitalist cases is they keep trying to make all of these amendments to change and tweak the machine so that it's not digging as fast, so that it doesn't dig all that often, and all that kind of stuff. But really, in the end, it's still a machine that is digging, and it is still the thing that it is designed to do. And if you really want to stop having holes in your floor, you really have to just turn the machine off and do something else. So I feel like there's never going to be you're just kind of mitigating damage. And that's where I would go. All right. Oh my. So many questions. Okay. I'll try to do these. I only have only 12 minutes left. Let's see how I can do this. Are countdown streams good for the algorithm? I don't know. I kind of do this more as a community building exercise to get to know my viewers a bit more. And I mean, probably to help a little bit with viewer velocity, but I am not 100% sure if it's a thing that works all the time. But I like doing it. I haven't the data to say whether it works, but I like doing it. You guys seem to like it, so I keep doing it. Is there hope for Eastern Europe? I certainly hope so. I am kind of dismayed by how people have, whenever I see like countries reverting to revanchism, and I really hope that nationalism has been particularly poisonous on Eastern Europe, and I really hope that it's a thing that can be overcome. And if they can then there's hope for us all. I agree. The death sentence is always wrong. Yes. What is your D&D alignment? I see. I see that. That is Will. I see you've seen the picture. My D&D alignment is chaotic good. I mean, yeah. Chaotic good. Man, you guys come up with all the questions right at the end of the stream. All right. Should Frankenstein's monster have human rights? Yes. If it can articulate a desire for rights, then why not? What is it? What causes it to you? Doughboy DeVito, is it weird that my friend is sympathetic towards communist ideas even though he wants to go to the Navy after high school? I mean, it's hypocritical, but it's hypocritical to the largest extent, but it is but there are a lot of people who call themselves communists who, as I kind of said in a Curious Cat thing, who are very right-wing and they still feel like oppressing minorities and all sorts of this and that. And so, I don't know. It's hypocritical, but it's not unheard of. So at least they're not going to be lonely. Oh, boy. Okay, where do we go? Okay. Do you think the world is a peaceful place, not counting the Middle East and internal problems? No, there's a whole stratification and hierarchy stuff that's going on to deal with things. It's gross. There's a lot of unfairness in the world, and even if violence isn't done with guns and bullets, it's still being done. Your opinion on horseshoe theory or whatever it's called, I think it's ridiculous. What's it called? Horseshoe theory is a thing that people like Ezra Klein use to make themselves feel smug. Horseshoe theory is smugness in chart format. It's this idea that anybody who's too far left or too far right are obviously crazy, and you, Mr. Centrist, are obviously right in the right place where you need to be. And that is the best way to govern and to run the world. And I think that is the most smug thing I've ever heard in my life. Why don't you wear contact? I actually have fairly sensitive eyes or sensitive eyelids or something like that. I've tried to get myself contacts on 3 occasions, and I just could not. I just could not find a way to get myself to poke myself in the eye enough for it to be worthwhile for me. Basically, the mechanics of putting contacts in and taking them out was too much for me. I couldn't. My eyes were too squeamish. I was always blinking. Plus, I like glasses. I think these look good. What do you think the implications of the Italian election might be? I don't know. The whole 5-star movement winning, I'm not exactly sure where it's going. It shows that Italy has a lot of soul searching to do, and they are at a crossroads, and they need to think long and deep about where they want to go from where they are. Does articulation predicate rights? Are you a contractarian? I think that might be a bit above my head, but I think that I am not a contractarian. I don't know. I just think that I don't use long words like that to outline my political philosophy. I just think that if something can articulate to the point that it wants to be treated like a person, why would you say, well, technically no, so you can't do it? I don't know. It seems really strange. Russian Navy played a big role in the October Revolution. Okay. Do you think the early 21st century was just the calm before the storm? I certainly hope not. I hope things get better rather than worse. But people seem to want to only people seem to not want to learn their lessons. If you can explain what you mean by a contractualist, then I'll try to go through it. But is the poverty line a spook? Is the poverty line too low? I do think the poverty line is too low. The poverty line is pretty rough, and it's in some pretty crazy places. I think it's ridiculous. I think that the living wage should be like pretty close, or at least should be higher, and probably should be considered the poverty line. But that's just me. We have more than enough resources to make sure everyone's taken care of. I don't know why we've decided to. I don't know. I've noticed in many history books that such amazing empires like Assyria have been glossed over. Why do you think these Mesopotamian empires get glossed over? Well, Gawk, the reason why a lot of those Mesopotamian empires get glossed over is because despite the fact that a lot of people have studied them, very little survives about them. A lot of them have very little, few things of cuneiform, but unfortunately writing at that point was more for documentation, and so there's very, very, very little survives. It's one of the oldest civilizations in history, and that's probably, and also the fact that the region has been very unstable for a long time, and so it's hard to do research in places like that. Okay. How should I convince my friend not to join the Navy? Well, Doughboy DeVito, you can't really force anybody to do anything. You'd really have to talk about, you'd really have to unpack the reasons why they're joining the Navy, and hopefully realize that, hopefully talk them through that, serving in the military isn't going to be the adventure they think it is. It's not going to be the service they think it is. And and despite what a lot of people say, wearing a uniform doesn't automatically make you a hero or a good person, which in America seems to be taken for granted. But yeah, and you're risking your life. And I think that you'd be better off if you want to sail and you want to have adventure and see the world, become a merchant marine. You don't need to join the military. Which cat of yours is your favorite? Oh man, so I've got two. I've got Phoebe and I've got Romeo, and Romeo is the younger one, and he's definitely softer and he's more affectionate, but he has his front claws while Phoebe doesn't, and I've had Phoebe longer, so it's hard. Actually, I don't know if I can make that choice. I like them both, but that's kind of a cop-out answer. But they're both good for different reasons. I like Romeo because he is the most rambunctious, and he's the softest, and he's the cuddliest. I like Phoebe because she's weird, and she's I've had her around longer, and she is the one that basically lives on my desk. She's not here now, but she spends a lot of time hanging out with me on my desk. She likes me the most. Do you plan on covering the various failed Mongolian invasions, like the invasions of Vietnam and Java? Not right now, but if there's a convincing story behind it, then I'd be able to listen. Alrighty, I'm just gonna load up my thing while we're getting ready, because we're coming to the end. There's 45 seconds until the stream is over. You guys keep challenging me every week with so many questions, and I'm never sure if I can make it to the end, but then I did it. And this guy upstairs has been making so much noise the entire time, so I'm really sorry for those guys. Okay, so hope you guys enjoy the video. It's gonna be great. you got do a flip. I hope you guys have a really great week. I will see you guys for those who are coming to So That Happened on Sunday. So that happened. And I will catch you guys later. All right, 2 o'clock. Peace.